Hello and welcome to Route 1 Football, the preview show brought to you by Star Sports. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at the teams chasing success in Europe. With me to discuss is Alex Crook and Robbie Savage. And Robbie's had a little bit of an experience in European football yourself, haven't you, Robbie?
Yeah, you sound very surprised, Bianca, there.
A long time ago, though.
Yeah, it certainly was. 2 campaigns. Leicester lost to Atletico Madrid, I think it was 1997-8. And then Blackburn finishing 6th in the Premier League. We went out to Bayer Leverkusen. So, yeah, don't be too surprised, Bianca. It wasn't that bad.
The good old days. But let's talk about more current matters. And we're going to start with the Champions League. Let's look at the chances of the English teams this season. How do you feel like the holders will fare?
Well, they're going to be right up there, I think. But history tells us it's very difficult to retain the Champions League. I think only Real Madrid have ever managed to do it since it was reformed as the competition that we know now. City have got all the tools, they've got all the experience. It was their kryptonite, wasn't it, for a while? And even in the final, actually, they weren't great against Inter Milan. I was there in Turkey and they were probably a little bit fortunate to get over the line, but they've done it now. And you wouldn't bet against them, but I think looking at those prices, there's probably better value elsewhere if you look at some of the European contenders.
There's far less pressure on them this time around, though, Robbie. Will that work in their favour?
They've done it. Can they be as good as last year? I think what Pep Guardiola won, he'll want to win all 4. Next season, they're adding the League Cup, where a trophy City have been successful in. Will they retain it? You know, Real Madrid, the only team to do that, as Alex has mentioned. It's going to be tough. I like Real Madrid. You know, looking at Jude Bellingham going in there, they've got, you know, a young, dynamic, hungry team once again. I think they'll be the team to beat. But City, you know, you can't rule out City again. And now they've won it, they'll want to win it back to back.
Well, of course, and Pep will want that accolade, won't he? Because obviously, if only Real Madrid has done it before, he's going to want to be one of the managers to have done it.
I think he'll be on a double mission to become the first manager to win 4 Premier League titles in a row and to become only the second manager to win back-to-back Champions Leagues. That would be some double.
When does he get in the conversation of best ever Premier League manager?
I think he's in it now. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I'm biased. Sir Alex Ferguson is still out in front for me, but I think the more success that Manchester City have, the more you have to take Pep seriously as a contender for that.
How much do you think those personal accolades matter to him?
I think it's got to be what drives him now, because he's won everything there is to win in the game. I think what's interesting, if you look at Manchester City, and there are comparisons to Fergie built numerous great teams at Manchester United, and with the departures that Pep's allowed over the last couple of summer transfer windows, looks like he's trying to build another Manchester City team. So that's the challenge.
Let's look at the other English teams in the Champions League. Let's take a look at Arsenal, Robbie. How do you feel their chances will be this season?
Oh, I think it'll be tough. I really do. You know, Alex thinks they'll win the league. So,
do you think Mikel Arteta just wants them to acquit themselves well in the Champions League?
I think he'll want to win. Of course he will. I think, but the way they ran out of steam, and I think they overachieved Arsenal last year. I think it's unfair criticism that they bottled it. I just think that they overachieved, because if we were doing this time last season, I don't think any of us would have had Arsenal in the top 4. So they pushed City all the way, for the first top of the league by 8 points. So I think, you know, if they can get out of the group stage, depending on what the group is.
It was always that elusive trophy, though, for Arsene Wenger, wasn't it? I mean, it would be a massive
For
success.
Arsenal as a football club, they've only ever won 2 European trophies, which is
Exactly.
astonishing, really, when you look at the success they've had domestically.
And that team that lost in the final to Barcelona, that was a
great
fantastic side. But I just can't see Arsenal, Manchester United or Newcastle winning this trophy. I think if there's any English club once again, it'll be City.
There's always, in a cup competition though, there's always that chance. Out of those 4, actually, let's forget Manchester City for the moment. Out of the other 3, who would you say has the best chance?
I would say Manchester United, because of the history in the competition. A manager who took Ajax to the semi-final.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
You know, and went so close with a young, dynamic squad. Again, in previous episodes, we've talked about Manchester United number 9.
Yeah, I think for the reasons Robbie said, you know, I think Ten Hag has got good European pedigree. I was there when they beat Barcelona in the Europa League last season. In the end, it came to nothing because they got knocked out, but that was a a great night under the lights at Old Trafford. I think it's just great to see Manchester United back in the Champions League. I think they enhanced the competition. I think there's still this stardust about trips to Old Trafford, even though Gary Neville would tell us that he's falling to pieces. I think players at big European clubs still want to play there. So, yeah, I think I could see them reaching a quarter-final. That might well be their ceiling. For Newcastle, again, I think just being back in the Champions League, first time in 19 years, is a massive achievement for Eddie Howe. But it's going to be a massive step up as well for Newcastle against those top European sides. The fans at St James's Park will give them a chance. I know Robbie thinks they'll fall just short and end up winning the Europa League. I think if they could get through to the knockout stages, that would be a great achievement.
Would you, as a Newcastle fan or player or manager, if you said, right, you get through your group, go out the knockout stages, or win the Europa League?
Yeah, they take the Europa League.
Yeah.
I mean, that fan base has been starved of a trophy for so long. They take the Dog and Duck Cup.
Remember, I won that.
But if you don't see any other English team winning it, what is success for each team, do you think? What will they be satisfied with?
I think for Newcastle getting out of the group,
Yeah.
I think if Manchester United and Arsenal can make it to a quarter-final, they'd be quite happy with that.
If they don't get out of the group, either of those teams, is that a big failure? Do you think there will be a big hoo-ha?
Yeah,
depends what the group is, doesn't it?
If they end up, but they're seeded. I think they're both in the top couple of pots. Newcastle aren't seeded, so they're likely to get the more difficult draw. I believe that's the case. I think if United and Arsenal find themselves in the Europa League come the turn of the year, they'd be disappointed.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with Alex.
It's so difficult to do both, isn't it, domestically and in Europe? Do you think most of these teams, perhaps not Manchester City, but will focus mainly on the domestic competition?
Not sure, actually. I think Mikel Arteta was visibly frustrated when Arsenal were knocked out by Sporting last season in the Europa League. I think the same with Ten Hag when United exited that competition. I think they'll want to go deep into the draw, so I think they'll believe that they've got squads capable of challenging both domestically and in Europe. Maybe slightly different for Newcastle. I think they'll enjoy the ride. But yeah, I think if you said to Eddie Howe now, you're going to go out in the group stage of the Champions League, but you'll finish top four again, I think that would be a good season.
Agree, Robbie?
Yeah, I agree. I think Newcastle are miles ahead of where they should be, in terms of, one of the richest clubs in the world. To finish in the Champions League places was quite remarkable. You think the recruitment, last season, Dan Burn, playing as a left back. Would Dan Burn get into Man City, Arsenal, Manchester United even? So the recruitment they did was quite incredible for where they were to get in the Champions League. But I'm with Alex.
Do you think they'll acquit themselves well though? Because you mentioned they'll probably get a tougher draw. Because they're unseeded. Is there a danger that they might
St James
not embarrass themselves, but
St James's
fall
Park,
short?
I remember that Newcastle side when they played Barcelona at St James's Park, I think, and it was. I'm sure Keith Gillespie was in the side. I might be completely wrong, but
when he was, and Asprilla scored a hat trick.
Yeah, well, those nights at St James's Park when you've played there, in front of 52,000 the lights, that Champions League music, those fans, the city. The pitch is on a slight slope as well. I didn't realise how big the slope was when I played there. You
fell down it.
Yeah, I did. So it's going to be that atmosphere can be like an extra player. It will be an unbelievable atmosphere. But again, if they finish in the top four, it's going to be very difficult for Newcastle to finish in the top four this year because of the Champions League.
Okay, moving on to the Europa League. So for the teams that we know are already in it, how do you think they're going to fare?
Well, Liverpool have got the best opportunity. Once again, I think there's even more, this competition more highlighted because if you're not in the top four winning it, you get in the Champions League. I think that's been hugely beneficial for this competition because we know how hard it is to get in the top four. Not me personally. But, the teams, the quality now, the 6 teams or 7 teams who are competing for that top four, real strength and depth. So for Liverpool, this competition is very, very important because I don't think they'll get in the top 4. So for me, this competition is hugely important for the red side of Merseyside, and I think they've got a real opportunity in it.
Do you think Jurgen Klopp's going to take this really seriously, this competition?
Yeah, I think he will for the reasons that Robbie's alluded to. And actually, I think English fans used to almost look down their noses at the Europa League. I think that's changed with the Champions League place. I think it's become a really strong competition. Whether they go all the way or not may be determined by where they're at come the turn of the year when the European season resumes, if they are part of the top 4 conversation, maybe even challenging for the title, then perhaps he might have a big decision to make. And for that reason, I quite like the look of Brighton at those prices. I mentioned already, I think Roberto De Zerbi is going to take the competition very seriously because he's seeing this as an opportunity to build his reputation and maybe go on to bigger and better things. European coaches have always taken this competition and treated it with great respect. So
first time ever for the club as well, isn't it? So it's a huge deal for them.
But I think they've got the talent, and what they've also done with the likes of James Milner, they've brought in a little bit of experience, someone who's been there, got the T-shirt, will relish these European nights. So I could see Brighton actually being part of the conversation for a long time.
To win it? To win it?
I think they'll go deep.
How deep?
I think they'll at least be quarter-finalists, maybe beyond.
Quarter-final last 8.
Maybe beyond.
A bit brave, that. Last 8.
It does depend who drops into the competition, though, doesn't it?
I think they're contenders. Yeah, I could see it.
Oh, bold.
No chance then for you, Robbie? No chance for
It's one of your old clubs, isn't it? You've got to be nice.
Well, a month I was there, a month at the Windbeams Stadium. On loan, I was terrible once again.
These episodes turn into a Robbie Savage history lesson, honest to God.
How bad I was, really. Listen, I don't think Brighton will be in the conversation in the latter stages. They've done unbelievably well. But I just think with the teams dropping out of the Champions League as well, might be a bridge too far forward.
You mentioned it yourself, though, Wolverhampton Wanderers a few years ago.
Yeah, fair point. I'm glad you remember other episodes. Nobody thought that De Zerbi, there were a lot of people saying who, and that's, a lack of knowledge about understanding of managers who are coming from abroad.
Did you say who?
No, I know managers. I study the game. People wouldn't believe that, but I do, being involved in on a daily basis.
Was he on your shortlist for Macclesfield?
No, not quite. But listen, I didn't think he'd have the success he has had. Because Graham Potter, what he did was Brighton. You're thinking whoever followed Graham Potter would be such a difficult task. But in shots on target, final
third possession. He took them to the next level, really, didn't he?
And it's unbelievable to think that from a Graham Potter side. So again, as Alex has said, he'll want to enhance his reputation of Brighton doing well, and I hope they do. Listen, it's a fantastic football club. They got the model right. They got the recruitment right.
I dread to ask about the next team that we've got there, because it's a bit. I mean, it's so exciting for West Ham to be in this competition. Of course, I just worry with the lack of signings so far.
That will change, though. They are going to spend the Declan Rice money.
They will do, but it depends how they spend it, if they can come together and, make the decisions together and get the right players in. That's what worries me as a West Ham fan. And having that squad depth is something that West Ham just doesn't have. I do feel that David Moyes will take it seriously, though. He's had a little taste of success now.
You were semi-finalists in this competition a couple of years ago and probably shooting yourselves in the foot by not getting to the final. So West Ham's European record in the last 2 years is fantastic.
But you two think he might get the sack first?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. That was definitely Alex. That was not me.
That's Bianca protecting.
They won't let me in the London Stadium.
Exactly.
God.
Future gigs.
I think it'd be fine, David Moyes.
Stop putting words in my mouth, please,
you
Savage.
You two have been honourable to him. I think it'd be fine, David Moyes.
So do you think that who's going to go further then, Brighton or West Ham?
Liverpool.
Brighton or West Ham?
It's a different West Ham team, though, this season without Declan Rice, isn't it?
He was the driving force.
Exactly.
But what they don't want to do is, Alex has said they'll spend the Declan Rice money. Do you remember when Spurs sold Gareth Bale and brought 7 players
wasted
in?
it.
So what they can't do, they've got to get it right. Listen, Ward-Prowse, Conor Gallagher, McTominay, would you get those 3 for 105 million?
And you need a striker in there.
But they surely need to spend a little bit more than that. If you're looking at,
and to be honest, we were a little bit light in defensive areas as well.
Yeah, need another centre back probably. Yeah. Answer the question: Brighton or West Ham? Who goes further?
Who goes further? West Ham. Well, they've got to a semi-final a couple of years ago, and they just won a European competition.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, crest of a wave. We're gonna definitely.
If David Moyes survives till September, October, November, whatever it is, do
you fear for him?
Don't stop it. I didn't say that. Okay, so Robbie, you've predicted that Newcastle will drop into the Europa League. So with that in mind, who goes furthest, Liverpool or Newcastle?
Well, you're looking at Newcastle. Will they be in pot 3 or 4 of the Champions League group? So it's going to be a very difficult ask for them. But you never know under the lights at St James's Park what
under
they can
those
achieve.
Lights.
Yeah.
Magic can happen.
Magic.
Yeah. If they do drop into it, again, I think they would have recruited really well, and they have recruited well. I've said on my bold predictions in previous episodes, we had to do a bold prediction. We know what yours was, which is Chelsea to win the league, Arsenal to win the league, David Moyes to lose his job early. So I went with Newcastle to win a European trophy. So I've gone for them to drop into it. And because I've done that, I stick with my predictions. Newcastle to win the Europa League.
That is a really long-winded way of saying Newcastle, but thank you very much, Robbie. What about you, Alex? I'm going to put you on the spot as well. If that does happen and Newcastle drop into the Europa League, how do you think they'll get on, and will they go further than Liverpool?
No, I don't think they'll go further than Liverpool. If they were to drop into it, again, I think it would depend on maybe what they do in January in terms of reinforcements, what injuries they pick up along the way. Liverpool are going to have a stronger squad than Newcastle when it gets to the business end of the season, so I think that'll be telling. Should have asked me who'd go further out, Newcastle and Brighton, and obviously I would have said Brighton.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Okay, now for a competition that's very close to my heart, obviously, the Conference League. The last team that we haven't spoken about in Europe this season is Aston Villa. So can a team in claret and blue win this competition for the second year running?
Did you win the conference?
I might do a Macclesfield in a couple of years.
Yes, is the answer. I think they've got a brilliant opportunity. I think that price is way too big. I don't think it's the strongest competition in the world. And no disrespect to West Ham. I think it's a competition that Premier League teams should be winning and winning on a regular basis. I think Unai Emery, with his record in Europe, 4 times a winner, 3 times with Sevilla, most recently with Villarreal. He knows the European game. They're going to spend big money in this transfer window. I think it's all there for Villa. I think they should win it.
Does it always depend on what happens in the Premier League, though, with a team like Aston Villa?
Well, you need to get the right balance, but he's proven that he can do that, Unai Emery, with his previous clubs, with the way that they're strengthening. Even people like Cameron Archer, who again was part of the England success at the under-21 Euros, this could be a competition that he plays in, and particularly in the early stages, gets goals. So I think it's all there for Villa.
How do you rate their chances, Robbie?
Yeah, very good. You're looking at the success of Italian teams in Europe last season. Roma won the competition the year before under Jose. Fiorentina got to the final. So you're looking at this. I don't think it's a given that an English team wins it, but West Ham were brilliant in it. But Villa have got a real opportunity, especially with the man in charge. So Aston Villa, this competition, it got hammered, didn't it? Early on, let's be fair, when it was invented.
It's just the name, isn't it? It doesn't lend itself to glory.
Conference.
But
as soon as you win it, though, it becomes something completely
I was at the
different.
final,
Right, let's take a moment to look at the contenders in the Champions League and the teams that the English teams will be facing this season. Who stands out for you that will be the ones to watch, the real threats?
Well, first of all, PSG stand out as being well too short when you look at the fact they've already lost Lionel Messi. They are going to lose Kylian Mbappe one way or another, so I don't think they've got any chance at all. For the same reason, Robbie's already mentioned them. I think Real Madrid, Jude Bellingham is one of my favourite players in Europe. I think he's just going to grow in stature as a result of pulling on that famous white jersey. And I think there's every chance that Mbappe ends up at the Bernabeu between now and the end of the transfer window. If that happens, they're going to be some team. They've already got Vinicius Junior, who I think is a wonderful talent. So I think Real Madrid, once again, will be there or thereabouts come the end of the Champions League.
Do you agree with Alex?
Yeah, I do. You can't write them off, unbelievable side. But Barcelona, won La Liga. Xavi doing a very, very good job. And Napoli, once again, can they repeat the season they had last year? What an entertaining side, winning the championship. Can they keep all the bossy men and the wide player?
The Georgian lad.
Yeah, Kvaratskhelia. Is that correct?
I think they will keep him.
What a player he is. And what they achieved, the scenes, when they won the league was quite remarkable. I don't think they can repeat it.
If I asked you the finalists, who's going to be in the Champions League final this season, who is it going to be?
That is a tough question, given that there's so many permutations with the draw, etc. But I'll go Real Madrid against the holders, Manchester City. Real Madrid to win the final.
Okay, Robbie?
I'm going to agree with Alex. Real Madrid.
Done that a lot in this episode.
Yeah, I like to go for the what everybody thinks will happen. City to win the league. Kevin De Bruyne also says.
I thought you said you only went for facts.
Yeah, fact. Real Madrid are they one of the most successful club in this competition?
Yeah.
City, can they match what Real Madrid getting it back to back. I think City against Real Madrid.
Who wins?
And City to win it. Back to back.
So these two think it will be a Real Madrid-Manchester City final, but I want to know what you think. Can you let us know in the comments? I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been great having you on Route 1 Football. See you next time.